Hello and welcome back to El Partido, yet another Spanish football podcast. But as always, with a little hint of nostalgia. I've changed it up a little bit there, I just fancied it. I'm Nick Bell, your host for this evening, and we've got a great episode planned for you this evening, all about one of the last legends of nostalgia in the Liga. And to talk with me about this absolute hero of ours is Paul. Paul is back. It's good to see you back. You've got power. You're here with us.
Yes, it's good to be back, Nick. Who'd have thought in 2026 that we would still have power cut issues and everything like that in this part of the world? But that's life, I guess, isn't it?
There is an energy crisis, and sometimes it's a bit closer to home than you would think, to be fair. Yeah. Maybe old Donald was having a flick on the switch in Manchester somewhere, just going, you know what he's like. He's a menace, isn't he? So
it was particularly humbling, and it makes me appreciate how lucky we are to have these technologies, particularly as we were. I have 2 young children, so keeping them entertained during a power cut whilst the oven wasn't working to make tea and everything like that was it went on and on and on. And to be honest with you, I was particularly disappointed as well because I missed out on the opportunity to check in with Paul Reedy, with yourself, but that did allow me to appreciate the episode from the perspective of the listener, and I thought it was a brilliant interview brilliant conversation between the two of you that I thoroughly enjoyed. And then obviously there's another episode that isn't at the time of recording. We haven't released yet to the main feed, have we?
Or have we? Not yet. No, so it's only available behind this special Patreon wall at the moment. So yes. Our patrons will have had the chance to listen to this one, but it's going to come out next Monday, I believe. For the wider feeds on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and all that jazz. But a great conversation with Will Dalton, who's the author of O San Lorenzo. Again, our first foray to something maybe slightly outside of Spanish borders. A close association, obviously, with in terms of culture and crossing divides into South America, but also, we did manage to speak about the similarities and comparisons and differences, and Iker Muniain as well, who obviously went to play for San Lorenzo. Pope Francis, who did come to live in Europe ever so slightly in the Vatican not too long ago.
We've got a great appreciation for the South American continent, haven't we? On this podcast, I mean, we've done a Brazilian 11, we've done an Argentinian 11. I think we definitely need to do a Uruguayan one, given the the number of Uruguayan players that have made their mark in La Liga. So we'll have to get Matt on board for that, won't we? And a Chilean one, perhaps. I think we might struggle with Venezuela and Ecuador and Peru. I mean, Peru, I can only think of the Rayo right back. What is it? Luis Advincula. Yeah. And
for some strange reason, I've just got Alberto Solano in my mind, but I'm pretty sure he didn't. Did he play in Spain? I know he definitely
associate him really with
I'll have to double check
London
that
clubs. So
yeah.
Or, I mean Venezuela. What we got? Arango. We've got Angel Herrera, Solomon Rondon. There's 3. Maybe there's more Venezuelans.
Yeah. There could be 2 plenty. Maybe we could do a rest of South America episode where we pitch the best of the best from the other countries,
the nations that haven't had 11 players featuring La Liga.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe that might be something on the agenda. By the way, if anybody hasn't heard of the book called Red Wine and Arepas, which is by a friend of mine, Jordan Floret, who's an author and currently working in Venezuela. I think he's a scout now for the national team or clubs within the Venezuelan Premier League. Brilliant. I know. It's a brilliant book. It's well worth reading. I've got a copy of it just behind the El Partido mug there. You can see the top of the yellow and the blue. Definitely worth picking up a copy of that if you get a chance.
Noted. I shall definitely give that a check out, and maybe some of the players he scouted might make it into our rest of South America 11, alongside Jurgen Locadia, by the way, who's going to the World Cup with Curacao. If you hadn't that one, he was last on these shores playing for Intercity down in Alicante. So again, lovely little connections just dotted around the place. However, tonight, got off on a tangent early. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a La Liga legend, the last of what I am coining, or we are coining, Paul, the nostalgia era, sort of like players who you recognise from that 2000s era, who were prominent and coming through and still playing in La Liga, the best part of almost 20 years later. And that is the legendary Antoine Griezmann, who this week announced that he was ending his time with Spanish football. He's going to go to the MLS. He's going to go to Florida, not to play with Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez and co into Miami, but he's going to go to Orlando, which, before we get into obviously the legendary stuff, but weird move. Like Orlando, I was expecting something a bit more glamorous for someone of Antoine Griezmann's character.
Well, he's following in the footsteps of another La Liga player, somebody who he just happened to have won the Ballon d'Or when he was at AC Milan. Talking about Kaká, obviously, he was at I think he was Orlando's marquee signing when they they first launched that franchise or not, but around about 2015, I think it was. I only sort of remember that because I think one of the first games that New York City FC played when they had David Villa, I think their first game in La Liga was against Kaká's Orlando.
Yeah, because those two teams joined the MLS around the same time, didn't they? As the new franchises, so to speak. And I think Kaká was the designated player for Orlando, but also I think Julio Baptista was also up top for.
You know what? You might
Orlando
be right about that,
well.
actually. Yeah.
And then on the other flip side, it was David Villa, Frank Lampard, and I think maybe Pirlo arrived just maybe a couple seasons later. I don't think there was a cross there, but
no, Pirlo was signed, but was he allowed to finish? So New York City signed Villa, Lampard, and Pirlo at the same time. Lampard was loaned to Manchester City straight away, pretty much, somewhat controversially. Some might say, which is where he became a real legend, not when he was at that other club that he spent however long at. And then Pirlo, I think, did he finish the season with? Because
it was Juventus, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was at the Euros, wasn't he? Because he scored against England.
Yes. I think in 2016, wasn't it? That he.
Was it? Or was it not? No, 2014 was the World Cup.
So 2014 was the World Cup in Brazil. 2016 was the Poland-Ukraine Euros, if I remember rightly. Oh, honestly, my brain's really winding back.
No, 2012 was Poland-Ukraine. 2016 was France. Because remember,
France, that was it.
That was the Euros where Northern Ireland were there, and they were all singing "Will Griggs on Fire," and
and Wales everybody started finals and things like that, didn't they?
Yeah. Look at that! This is 3 tangents in 9 minutes. That's got to be a record. Shall we try and get back on top of it?
Just get us back into a room, Paul. That's just what happens. So I suppose criticism of maybe moving to Orlando aside. It's obviously very sad to see him leave La Liga. He's a player who has, made such an impact as an individual, as a character, as someone who promotes the league as well in an era where obviously, the talent unfortunately does seem to tide towards the Premier League, for example, for the top players. He's been involved in it all. He's been in European finals. He's been in Copa del Rey finals. He's never won La Liga, incidentally, even though he's played for, two major clubs who have won La Liga in the time that he was in La Liga as well. So quite a niche topic. But I suppose when I refer to him as the last of the nostalgia era, he's possibly the last player in Spain, or certainly the top tier of Spanish football, where you can say he was part of that niche, that cohort of players that included the likes of Xabi Alonso or Cristiano Ronaldo or Messi, Xavi, Iniesta, because he was there at a very young age, no doubt, but he was there, part of it, and succeeding at that time, wasn't he?
He certainly was, yeah. He's actually got, when you look back, he's got remarkable longevity. He's been in La Liga since 2010, I think, at Primera level. He made his debut for Real Sociedad's first team in 2009, but they were in Segunda then. So, yeah, we're talking 15 full seasons in La Liga. And if you think about how much the game has changed, the world's changed in that time frame, he is somebody who, has played against some of the best and some of the big names that we've ever seen, but he's also currently still playing against, this new generation, and he's still doing it, really. I mean, obviously, some people might say that this final season for Atleti's perhaps been a little bit underwhelming, but I mean, we'll get into his performance over that long and storied career. But you're absolutely right to say that because he's been a part of the furniture in La Liga for so long, really now. Yeah, it is kind of like, it does feel like this could be like the last. Well, it is the last one of a certain generation of La Liga faces and talent. Put it this way, I can remember 2014, I want to say. He was still at 2014. He signed for Atleti, so it might have been in the 2013 season. He scores a goal for Real Sociedad against Depor, and it's at Anoeta, but it's where they still had the running track. Now, do you know the goal I'm referring to? Anoeta still had the running track, but they had a car parked behind the goal, which was, I think, one of the sponsors, or it might have been a giveaway. And he celebrates the goal by climbing in the car, and and you just don't get that now. But he's obviously been around that long, and that's for me, he's up there with like one of the most memorable goal celebrations in the league history. It's just a bit of fun, but that kind of the fact that you wouldn't get that now shows as well how much it's the end of an era in a way.
And I think that's the big thing with Griezmann is that he's part of that generation who have those kind of stories, isn't he? And stories is a great word to use for those kind of players, because they do have a majesty. You can speak about, Antoine Griezmann, David Villa, David Silva, Xabi Alonso, as we've mentioned, and they've all got this story where it's they started here, and then they moved to that club, went on loan there, they achieved this, and they changed the way the game played by doing that. I can't really explain that. If you was to say to me, maybe the closest we're getting at the minute is maybe Lamine Yamal, at a push in terms of like, he's a La Masia product, and he's he's worked his way up, and he's got that connection to Messi when he was a baby type thing. But other players who are coming through in Spanish football, I don't really have that connection with them, and I don't think many people do. They usually come out, and it feels more that being a footballer in Spain at the minute, or certainly a footballer playing in La Liga, is more transactional, and it's just like you appear, you apparate into a club, and you have a good season, and then you move on. And there aren't really many stories knocking around nowadays, especially in the top teams. Maybe if you dive more into sort of like the mid-table La Liga clubs, you look at like Mariqui for Mallorca, for example, or Piazon for Rayo Vallecano. There may be stories as well, but it doesn't feel like there's as much. I'm going to get stick for using this word, aura about them.
I get what you're saying, and you think about the players that have left La Liga in the last 3, 4, 5 years. We've obviously seen Messi go, which is one thing, but in that same period of time since COVID, obviously we're talking about Griezmann going. We've had David Silva retire, who obviously he spent the majority of career outside of Spain, but he started it in La Liga and he finished it in La Liga. We've lost Harkin, who, we never thought he was ever going to retire. Jesus Navas has gone. Yeah. We can talk about Ronaldo and Bale and Benzema. They should be in that bracket.
Yeah, Modric, Kroos, those kind of players.
Modric, yeah, Kroos. And this is post Xavi and Iniesta. Obviously, they were a bit before this sort of window. Aritz Aduriz has gone. I would maybe argue that we still have one or two in the shape of Inaki Williams is still obviously playing his trade, and I think his story is unique and fantastic. And I hope that we've still got some more years of him playing in La Liga, and particularly that it carries on with Nico. I think that it's unique to have the two brothers, particularly at that club with Athletics. They are unique in the world, and I, it's weird actually to say this, but I think it's probably you and I feel this, but we kind of have an appreciation for each and every club in Spain in their own way. Mm-hmm. Each club's got its own unique charm. But yeah, other than maybe a handful of players now, this is us saying farewell to a past generation or a player from the past generation. I think it is quite sad in a way, but it's been an eventful career in Spain for Antoine Griezmann. Maybe it's a good opportunity to walk through that now.
Yeah, no, I think, well, again, I always measure a player in terms of how I link them to sort of that era by saying, could I sign them in FIFA 2010? And yes, I could if I wanted to. I could sign Antoine Griezmann, who was at Real Sociedad at the time. And, he's a very young player, but you could see there was definitely, something about him. And he'd made, an interesting move. He was rejected by some clubs in France. Was offered the chance to move to San Sebastian at quite a young age, and then basically just thrived at Anoeta, didn't he? And this is at a time when again, Real Sociedad are primarily a selling club, aren't they? Like I say, they don't have the same, as we've mentioned, Cantera philosophy necessarily that Athletic Club have had, but they like to promote from their youth. That's what they are good at. It's what they're strong at. They've had many instances of it. Mikel Arteta, happy birthday, by the way, Mikel. It's your birthday today. But Antoine Griezmann was someone who was brought through at a very young age, and he was immediately, and I mean immediately, electric. And you could see how good he was on the pitch by the way he moved and by the way he, built up partnerships. And the one that I, was really, really impressed by, and this, again, is another really big who, and it came up on Super Sebasta early this week with the Los Boyos. His relationship with and his kind of like almost telepathic association with Carlos Vela, was absolutely incredible and brought about, a really successful period of time for Real Sociedad as they re-established themselves in La Liga after winning promotion from the Spanish Segunda. As you mentioned, the goal where he got into the car, I believe that was an assist by Vela, if I remember rightly. But there were so many good goals when they would just work on the counter-attack and they'd be so silky and they were such a good pairing.
Do you know, you're right.
The Liga by storm.
Yeah, there's actually, I came across this. It was this morning. I was on a tram and, on public transport, I don't necessarily want to talk to other people. So I'm watching highlights on my phone. There's a montage on YouTube, and it's called Carlos Vela y Antoine Griezmann, and then I can't remember. There's just one single word afterwards, and I think it's something like Magico or something like that. And it's like 17 minutes long of just them two linking up, and not all of them are like goals. Some of it's just like interplay and little flicks and back heels and things. But yeah, you're right. There was a unique sort of chemistry there. It really shone. I mean, to go back a step to the point you made before, Griezmann's, he's the son of a Portuguese mother, a German father, but he's brought up in France. His maternal grandfather, I believe, played for Pacos de Ferreira in Portugal. So, the sports in his DNA, you could say. He goes to the Cantera at Real Sociedad. I think the head coach was Martin Lazarte, who identified him, in the B team setup, brought him into the first team when Lazarte was moved into the first team arena. He makes his debut for the first team in 2009-10. Scores some goals in the Segunda. They get promoted, and he's straight into the Primera team. And from 2010 to 2014 or 2013-14 season, he's linking up, he's scoring goals, he's helping the club qualify for Europe. As well, I'm right in thinking he's one of those players who is in he's in the team, in and out of the team probably is more accurate, under David Moyes during that very brief spell. Doesn't Moyes take over in the November of 2013, or is it November 2014?
I think it was 2014, because I was speaking to Mark about this, because he lived in San Sebastian at the time, and I said, we were speaking about Antoine Griezmann, and he was saying, I would have loved to have seen him play under David Moyes, or David Moyes as we call him here, because that would have been, like I say, a really interesting sort of like plot for him. But I think at that point he just moved to
so it must be the season
to Atletico Madrid. But again, I think the great thing that Griezmann did for Real Sociedad was he became the face of this, like you say, almost resurrected club. We take for granted how longevity affects teams in it being in La Liga, but it's not a God-given right that you're there.
No.
There's only been, I think, only 3 sides who have never been relegated from La Liga, and at the time, La Real were one of them. And he became the face of this revival. It was around the time the club was celebrating their centenary as well. So he wears that iconic 1909 to 2009 shirt as well in that season when they get promoted out the Spanish Segunda. And it's just a really fun time for him. But more importantly, as we mentioned before, Real Sociedad, during the noughties were ultimately a selling club. And it was a shop window for him. And it was a shop window where he said, right, well, I can go, and really, if I wanted to, could play anywhere. So it was interesting at the time, Paul, that, Atleti came in for him and were basically, on the back of winning the Europa League, I think it was, if I remember rightly. They bought Antoine Griezmann basically with the prize money. They said, right, well, we need to strengthen. We've got Champions League football to prepare for now. We want to go and get a talisman or a star player or a young and up and coming to complement, the strike force that we've got. And Griezmann was his boy. And you know what? At the time, I can't say at the time, I thought, that's a bad idea, because I was never really that, tactically minded or aware of it when it happened. But when you look at him at Real Sociedad, and then you think about the way that, especially Diego Simeone played football in 2013, I would not have put these two together at all as a pairing. But I tell you what, it bloody well worked out, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely it did. And I think it was only 30 million euros that was the cost to take him from La Real to Atleti, and which now would, you see goalkeepers going for more than that nowadays, don't you? But obviously back then it was a sizable chunk. And the link up, I mean, so here's the thing. He was about 22, I think, when the move comes off. It's not necessarily easy for him to adapt immediately to going from playing the and you used the word electric before. I think that's right. That style of play that he had been used to, more free flowing at La Real to, this is the Atleti team that would we say, going back a few episodes, was at peak Cholismo at this point, winning the league, to go into that system, a player like Griezmann, who how would you describe him? It's not to say that he is, because he is quite scrappy. He's stronger than he looks, and he's got pace. But I think he's more of a finesse forward, if you know what I mean. Like his finishing is more of a, I don't know. You have strikers who you would say place the ball rather than strike through it, and I think he's more of he places the ball. Finesse is probably the right way of.
He always struck me as a bit of an oxymoron in a Simeone side, because at that point, like you say, during peak Cholismo, it was we'll play you off the park, we're disciplined, but we'll also rough you up ever so slightly. But I never got that feeling from Griezmann, and I don't think it's that he was dulled or numbed by Simeone in his tactic play, but he was moulded to be sort of like the perfect foil. It is the way I would describe him. And again, this isn't an era where we start to see the term second striker being invented. We'd had second strikers, little and larges for a very long time. However, it is the era of sort of like the true interchangeable number 10. We've already mentioned the likes of Kaká, but you're also seeing Mesut Ozil going through at Real Madrid at the time, Modric, all these kind of players who just play off the striker, who are more than capable of scoring goals themselves, but also perfectly great at creating opportunities and chances, and essentially occupying space where other players just simply wouldn't be there. And I think that's what worked so well for Griezmann, as where everyone else was sort of like quite rigid in their play and was essentially told what they needed to do. Simeone gave Antoine Griezmann the trust to kind of just go out and do what he needed to do, as long as he was within the bounds of Cholismo, essentially, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the key word there is trust. So with Simeone's style of play, you need to have the right work rate, both with and without the ball. And I think it's definitely fair to say that Griezmann brings you that and has consistently done so. And that has earned him the trust of Simeone in a way that, particularly in his first few years, it meant that Griezmann needed to be able to be cute with his chances when the opportunities came. He needed to finish them, because that team wasn't really renowned for chance creation, shall we say. So you have to be clinical there, and you have to be cute with your play, but you've also then got to work really, really hard to help the rest of the team. And in doing so, thinking back to some of the players that were in the squad at that time, partnering up with the likes of the midfield that had Koke and players that were two-footed and technical, but also they had a real tenacity to them off the ball, working to put pressure on the team and then turn and break. I think you've got to have a bit of patience and wait for your chances, and when the chance comes, you've got to take it. And I think that's what Griezmann's always been good at, is he doesn't necessarily need 4 or 5 chances, because one is enough. He's got that, what they call it? They call it a smell for goal, don't they? I think in Spain is how they translate. They translate it literally into English. He can smell the goal. He's always been like that. Sometimes as well, I have noticed that there's been comments that maybe his body language hasn't always looked the greatest on the pitch, but I've always thought that was overstated. You used to see it in if Atleti had lost 1-0 or something like that, it would be, oh, Griezmann did nothing, and he just sort of moped about. And I always thought that was harsh criticism. But certainly during that period, just to try and get back on topic, he was the focal point. He had to be disciplined. He had to be patient, and when the chance came, he had to take it. And he did earn that trust of Simeone, and that's, you know, it led to him being linked with a lot of moves. You know, we can talk about the Decision documentary, which, do you know, I have never watched in its entirety because I just thought, what a waste of time. But apparently, you know, all footballers are at that these days, aren't they? Making their own.
Oh well, we've just seen one this weekend, haven't we?
Yeah.
Filmed. It's so quick to disprove these things. Again, it proved that it was filmed like at the beginning of February or something like that. So it's just a bit mad. But I think the big thing I take away from Griezmann's time, or his first stint with Atleti, this is a time where, first of all, Atleti are becoming a genuine challenger to the monopoly or the duopoly of the top two. They are reshaping the expectations of Spanish football by breaking that dominance of Real Madrid and Barcelona. And as a part of that, you know, with El Clasico, with the Real Madrid versus Barcelona effort, there was this Ronaldo versus Messi part of it as well, who were constantly in competition. And along with that, I think as part of that rhetoric for Atleti joining that as a trio, there had to be someone who went in there and was like, right, you are also in that conversation. And, you know, when we come to think about it, how close was, during this time, Antoine Griezmann to winning a Ballon d'Or, with the effect he was having not only on what he was doing at Atleti, reaching, winning La Liga with them, reaching the Champions League final, and then obviously the success he has with the France national team as well. If there wasn't this period of where we had this super domination of Ronaldo and Messi, I genuinely think that Griezmann would have been a world beater in terms of a Ballon d'Or winner, as we would describe it. And there'll be arguments to say that maybe he should have been, because the duopoly ended up sort of like taking over the entire narrative at times, when even some seasons, with Ronaldo or Messi, there were questions of, well, were they truly the best player that season, or was it someone like Antoine Griezmann? And I think that is exactly what defines his peak, really. And it was with Atleti, and it was that successful period in his first stint as well, that he reached these heights that I don't even think he expected to reach at one point.
No, you're absolutely right. And obviously with the likes of the duopoly of Messi and Ronaldo, there was definitely some players across the world that, you know, any other year they would have been deserved winners of the Ballon d'Or. You know, some people may have said the same about Luis Suarez when he was at Liverpool, Sergio Aguero when he was at Manchester City, Kevin De Bruyne, David Silva. You could name half of the Barcelona team in their treble year in 2015. That one, but Griezmann has been pretty consistent, I would say, from in the 10 years up to the end of his first spell at Atleti. So his Real Sociedad debut in 2009 to his 2019. He never sort of. It was season after season. His performances seemed to improve, and were already significantly better than many others in the league. Obviously, going to the World Cup in 2018, it was on it with France and winning it. He was that's elevates his profile, but he was already on fire in terms of club football. 2019 and the actual decision to leave, you can just, it would have been hard for him to have made the decision not to have gone at that point, because obviously his desire was to win a league title, and it just so happens that the season before he arrives at Atleti, they win the league. They don't win it there, and the season after he leaves Atleti, they win the league title. So he's missed out. And when you think by moving to Barcelona for 120 million euros at the time, you'd think with that particular Barcelona team that you'd stand a chance of winning La Liga, but lo and behold, it's your old club that, what a unique story that is in itself. The way that he's missed out on winning it.
Yeah, it's a huge sort of like tale in itself, that, in terms of saying what could have been. And I think the biggest irony of that also is the fact that Luis Suarez went the other way.
Yeah.
Ultimately, he was sacrificed by, at the altar of the Camp Nou by Ronald Koeman to say, right, no, we're changing this. You're a little bit old now. We want to bring in, a younger striker at the top of his game for, over 100 million euros. So off you pop. And he very much went and got his revenge by becoming a key cog in, I think, in that one season he spent in, or maybe two with
Atleti.
Atleti.
Yeah, it was the second one. Obviously, that season itself is quite unique because it's the one that's interrupted by COVID, and obviously there's the famous scenes of it was Valladolid. They were playing away, weren't it? They were at the coldest stadium in Spain to win the title, and Suarez is on the pitch. He's FaceTiming his wife or his family, or so crying, and the other Atleti players are all crying on the pitch because they've achieved something pretty incredible without fans in the stadium, and Griezmann's not there to be a part of it. I mean, what I will say is that Atletico did not win the league that season because of COVID. They were already miles ahead before the world stopped. Yeah, and I mean, Diego Costa as well. I mean, he left halfway through, didn't he? The first few games, he was on fire. It was really strange how that happened as well. But yeah, it's quite sad for Griezmann that on a personal level that he misses out. I mean, if you're not Antoine Griezmann, it is also kind of amusing, but it's sad for him, if you know what I mean.
Well, it was such a weird time for him, and the thing is, he wasn't the only person that sort of like fell foul for this. What effectively became like a bit of a black hole for Barcelona, in terms of they were signing multiple players, obviously with the idea that one of them is probably going to have to replace Lionel Messi one day, whether it was Griezmann or Coutinho or Ousmane Dembele, who basically went there and all failed at the same time. And it's never really been proven as to why that actually happened, because from the outside looking in, if you look at the transfer of Antoine Griezmann to Barcelona, you'd say it's a massive failure. It's a flop. He didn't do well at all. Well, actually, when you look at some of the games that he played actually really, really well. He obviously suffers from a pretty bad injury whilst he's at Barcelona as well, which keeps him out for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be, that conversation of, you're not as good as Lionel Messi. Well, who the fuck is? So it was always going to be difficult for him to go there. And I think, the lack of, and it goes back to what you talked about earlier about, Diego Simeone trusting him to express himself within the realms of what is possible, but also, to trust him to go and do what he needs to do on the pitch. I just don't think he ever had that at Barcelona. I don't think he was, trusted by the coaches. I don't think he was trusted by his teammates. I think the fans were too eager or quick to get on his back. And without that, I just felt like he couldn't thrive at Barcelona, which is such a shame, because if you'd have said that at any other point in the last 20 years, 25 years, Barcelona signing a really talented footballer from a league rival, a la Rivaldo, or signing a Jordi Alba from Valencia or something like that. They work. So I can never quite put my finger on, Paul, why it didn't work here.
Yeah, I mean, well, you could look at that period of Barcelona in under a particular microscope anyway, and think, what on earth was going on? I mean, I know we've already gone off on so many tangents in this episode, but at that particular time, the turnover of playing staff and the under the Koeman era was really quite strange. I think there was a lot of panic going on at Barcelona, wasn't there? And it was the start of what they're still, they've spent the last 5 years trying to recover from, Palenkas and everything like that. I mean, put it this way, this was the time when they had, was it Serginho Dest that he'd signed as a right back, who was like the next big thing. And I honestly could not tell you now where he is playing, if he's still playing professional. I mean, I'm presuming he's still playing professional football. He was only young when he came into the team then, but I have no idea what happened to his career.
PSV. I'm gonna have a look at that in the background.
Because they were like, oh, he's going to be, he's going to be the right back situation settled for years, and very quickly that changed.
He is at PSV.
Is it? Yeah,
a little tap on my head for that.
This was also they had Frankie de Jong that came in, wasn't they? But there was also a bit of a turnover in other players that didn't seem to stay around for him. But we should point out that during his spell at Barcelona, Griezmann, and he played a big part in it. He did win the Copa del Rey, so it wasn't that it was a trophyless period of his career or anything. It's just it was not. It didn't click, and it was kind of go on.
It just wasn't the same, was it? I think ultimately that's what it comes down to, is that he'd set the bar so high, Ballon d'Or contender, heir to, apparent to the Messi and Ronaldo story, and it flopped for him. And I think whether that comes down to pressure, whether that comes down to all the antics that were happening around him, maybe not being conducive to the way he likes to play football or live his life, that also ultimately will go down as a blot on his career. But again, you can never really blame Antoine Griezmann for what happened during his time in Barcelona. It all sort of happened around him, which I think is further proven massively by the impact he has when he goes back to Atleti. So again, it's only two seasons he has in Catalonia before he goes back to the capital.
So he joined Barca in 2019 and he comes back to Atleti in 2021.
Initially on loan, wasn't it, if I remember rightly?
Yeah, they were trying to sort out a deal. Barcelona also had to offload him from a wage point of view, didn't they? This was the start of, this is where the Palenkas are really starting to be pulled. Sounds like a euphemism, doesn't it? But this was at that point, and I remember the conversation being what they need to find an exit for him before the date comes in where La Liga's financial fair play controls. Was this as well? They needed him to go so they could register the signings of several. I think it was like 2 players, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was replacements, weren't they, for the striker? I think one of them was Ousmane Dembele. Because again, they've gone out and spent 135 million on him whilst they're absolutely skint. So they need to offload somebody else who was a high wage earner to get him. And I also think there was a little scope of where they were, renegotiate the contract with Messi as well, if I remember rightly. So I think he had to move other people on.
Messi, does Messi go to PSG 2022?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
he's been in Miami now for a couple of seasons. Yeah, so I think he had 1 season in Paris, didn't he? But
yeah. So it's a very strange period, isn't it? But he returns anyway, and it works out to be a very good deal, I think, overall. It's the loan spell, and you think, is it going to be worth Atleti paying money? But it turns out that Barcelona were that desperate that they were prepared to take quite a knockdown price to get the deal done, for him to permanently move back to Atleti. And I think, obviously, it was always going to be difficult for him to rediscover the form that he showed in his first spell, particularly given the difference in age and injury record in particular. He comes back and he plays a different role, deeper, not being required to use his pace as much, and more of a playing others into the game. You think about the players that he had around him. They had Alvaro Morata. They had a slightly different system. This was, if I'm right in thinking, this is where Simeone is changing the shape of his team slightly, because they had Kieran Trippier still, didn't they? They were playing more with a flexible fullback approach. Marcos Llorente was left-sided fullback / midfielder. The midfield was rotating with, it's a different system that he's coming back into.
And I think, and I think the 2 points that we take from this move coming back is one, he could have gone anywhere. I'm sure he was being offered out to clubs in around Spain, in the Premier League, so many Spanish clubs were at the time, even back in his native France. If he wanted to go to PSG or something like that, I'm sure he could have had that move. But there was kind of just like a need from Antoine Griezmann's part to go back to Atleti. First of all, to show a bit of humility, to say, you know what, that was a mistake. I'm holding my hands up. That decision video, fucking hell, wasn't I a bit of a knob? But I'm also come back here to, again, a bit like the Suarez thing. I need to rebuild my reputation here. I've allowed Barcelona to chew me up and spit me out, but I'm coming back here to prove to not only myself, but to you, that I can still do it at the very top. And if there's one manager who can get the very best out of Antoine Griezmann, it is Diego Simeone. Now, you've mentioned this side has already moved on. It's evolving. This is not Cholismo so say anymore. This is like Cholismo 2.0, isn't it? Which seems to be, more about squad rotation and game management more than being brutish. But ultimately, what Simeone needed in that squad, despite winning La Liga, to get it to where it is now, he needed someone like Griezmann to come in and be the link up between not just the players, but also the link up between this is what we were, and that's a problem that I think a lot of managers who stick around for a long period of time, who aren't around for 2 years or around for 10 years, they find it difficult to reset the cycle, and only the top managers can do that. You see Pep Guardiola doing it at the minute with Manchester City. He's been there for a decade. He's had to done it about 2, maybe even 3 times now, where he has to reset it, but he always keeps somebody around to remind them this is where we began. And I think that's what Diego Simeone needed when he brought Griezmann back.
Yeah, and if you look at the way that, midway, well, we've got probably about 8 games left of the 25-26 season. And Atleti, their star player arguably at the moment is this season is Julian Alvarez, who I think is a world-class. He's not a number 9 anymore. He's evolved. He's expanded to being, a 9 and a 10, I guess. And players like that who are still young. Go on, sorry.
I was going to say he is Griezmann 2.0 to me. He's a reincarnation of what Simeone wanted Griezmann to do. You put Alvarez alongside a Sorloth, for example. You take that same thinking and go, right, you put Griezmann alongside David Villa or Diego Costa. Same rules, same applies. And I think that's what, is really probably helping Julian Alvarez at the moment, to be able to, learn from and get the benefit from, Griezmann's knowledge of that role. He is doing that now. He's that link up. He's that second foil. He's that number 10 who can play as a striker type thing. And the parallels are there. But it's what keeps Simeone going and keeps him returning and resetting everything, doesn't it?
That's it. It's like a mentorship, isn't it? He's probably one of, and not just Atleti or Real Sociedad's best players of the 21st century. I think he's rightly one of the best forwards in La Liga's storied history. In my opinion, I think he's one of. Obviously, there's been some phenomenal forwards, but he is somebody who I think deserves credit for his accomplishments within Spanish football. He may not have as many trophies to show for it as perhaps a player of his talent and ability deserves, but for moments, magical goals, assists, I think he's right up there. I mean, put it this way: I didn't realize this until today. He is, in terms of all-time European Cup / Champions League competition, he is 19th in the top scorers charts for that. Obviously, as you'd expect, Ronaldo and Messi are like the top two, and then you've got Lewandowski, Benzema. He's only 2 goals behind Eusebio and Sergio Aguero in the Champions League. 4 goals behind Di Stefano. He's got more Champions League or European Cup goals than the likes of Drogba, Neymar, Del Piero, Puskas, Cavani, Gerd Muller, Wayne Rooney. There's not many more than Samuel Eto'o, Ian Robben, Paco Gento, David Trezeguet. He's got more European Cup goals than all of them. Kaká, Rivaldo, Luis Suarez. There's only the usual suspects ahead of him. He's Ronaldo, Messi, Lewandowski, Benzema, Raúl, Mbappe. Bit of an anomaly there because he's still a goal machine. Same with Erling Haaland, who's got more. But then it's like Thomas Muller, how long was his career? His career was 18 years, really, wasn't it? Bayern Munich, first team, near enough.
Similar sort of story as well, really, isn't it?
Yeah. So,
but it is.
Griezmann deserves some credit here.
Oh, of course it is, and he's a benefactor. He wouldn't be at that level, as the 19th highest goal scorer in the Champions League if he wasn't at Atleti and helping them qualify for the Champions League every year, almost religiously and getting, not just into the group stages, but deep into the tournament and reaching those finals. He leaves Atleti as well now, let's not forget, as their all-time leading goal scorer, which when you think of the strikers that they've had over the years, Fernando Torres, Sergio Aguero, Diego Costa.
Well, how many times have we said that we wanted to do an episode that is just about Atletico strikers?
Yeah.
Because they've had so many brilliant ones over the years. Like you say, Torres, Aguero, Suarez, Forlan, Griezmann. To be that and to do it in an era where to put our lazy, football Twitter glasses on for a moment, that Atleti team that play so defensive and don't, he's done it. He's scored hatfuls for that Atleti team.
Yeah, he really has, and I think that's the way he's got to be, remembered going forward. Certainly from people like ourselves, from being that hook back into sort of like, let's say, the last player from that era of any kind of note that we can put our hat on. But I think as well, as you mentioned, he goes down as a La Liga legend. He's not just wasn't he a good player? He is an elite level footballer who should have won a Ballon d'Or, who definitely deserved to win more trophies than he did, but he didn't win those trophies because he remained at a club that he quite clearly loves out of loyalty and affinity. Like you say, he could have gone to Paris Saint-Germain and won Ligue 1 every season and potentially picked up a Champions League, under Luis Enrique. Or he could have gone to the Premier League and done the same thing with Manchester City or Liverpool or Chelsea, whatever it might have been. But ultimately, he went to Atleti, he got the trust from Simeone, and he became a legend at Atletico Madrid, which is no mean feat considering the plethora of legends that they have there as well. So I think that's the way he'll definitely be remembered going forward, and certainly, as you say, a La Liga legend as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know how to end other than on that note, to be honest with you.
Well, I think all we can do, Paul, is say Thank you, Antoine. Because, and this is where we need some like soft, slow piano music where we talk about, he made his dream again. But ultimately, he was just so bloody fun to watch, and I think he did it all with a smile on his face. And it wasn't just necessarily the amount of goals he scored or the way he played. Sometimes it's his hairstyles where he dye his hair some bloody mad color, and he brought character to it. But I think ultimately the best thing I quite like about Antoine Griezmann is that he's one of the last footballers. Footballers nowadays feel so remote. You wouldn't be able to walk up to him into the street without being absconded by security. But I remember one interview or one video clip I saw of Antoine Griezmann. I think he was travelling somewhere on a plane, and he was opened up his laptop. And again, not just he's not got his iPad and he's having a thing like that. Full on fucking laptop. And he's playing Football Manager, and he's talking to whoever was sat next to him about taking his Newcastle side to the Champions League semi-final. And you know what? He's just one of us, which is the best thing. Anything about
I know that clip, and I think it's he's on France international duty, going to the World Cup, and I think he's saying to Mbappe, "I'm going to sign you," or something like. Or is it Paul Pogba? It might be Pogba actually. It was 2018 World Cup, and he says like, I'm going to sign you, and we're going to do this, and it's like, who are you? Oh, I'm Newcastle.
and it's just so regular in what you would expect from anybody like that who's getting on a long haul flight and just I'm going to play Football Manager for a bit, and it's not he's not some daft gimp who's going come and buy my NFT or let's do this type of thing. He seems genuine, which is probably the point I'm trying to make. So not only is a brilliant footballer, he's also just a genuine guy. And, we're going to miss him. Ultimately, the ultimate thing, we're going to miss him. I hope he does well in the MLS. It's a shame he's going to Orlando, which is, again, as I'm not saying America is the most cultural place, but there is more culture out there than Orlando is probably what I'm going to say. However, I'm sure he's getting paid an absolute fortune to do so. He's going to go over there and absolutely tear it up, and he gets to maybe reignite some kind of rivalry with Messi and Luis Suarez as well. So I'm sure he'll have a ball of fun in Florida going out there as well.
Definitely. And even if he's not enjoying it on the pitch, he's close enough to a big theme park that he can get his kicks from. And you know what, as well, I would say, look, if we need to play a montage now, it should just be a clip of some of his best goals and flicks and celebrating in the car, but it should also have all of his different hairstyles in.
Absolutely.
That the one where he's waving locks,
Yeah. And if it doesn't work out in the MLS, and Antoine, I'm speaking to you directly here, get on the phone to Simeone. If he won't have you back at Atleti, I'm sure he could get you a stint in the Argentine Premier, because more and more players are going down there. And I think, I'm just going to put it out there, you would love it down there as well. So maybe keep your eyes peeled for maybe Antoine Griezmann appearing in the Argentine Primera sometime soon. Paul, it's been an absolute delight to join this evening to reminisce about all things Antoine Griezmann. It's always good to talk to you about football nostalgia, but this has been great.
Thanks, Nick. Likewise, really enjoyed it. And as you say, to Antoine Griezmann, merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup. And merci beaucoup to you guys at home as well. Thank you for listening to us here on the podcast. If you're a Patreon subscriber, keep your eyes out for all the extra bonus content coming to you soon, whether it's Super Sebasta, Q&As, Revista del Partido coming soon. And if you're not an El Partido Patreon subscriber, what are you waiting for? It's only £2 a month, less than a cup of coffee, and about 100% less than an eighth of a tank of fuel at the moment. So you can definitely extend to £2 a month to get all this extra super stuff as well. Also, head over to the Substack if you want to keep in touch with us there as well. We've got 2 brilliant articles coming out every week. El Final on a Tuesday, which is a roundup of all the things you should have seen at the weekend, and La Vista, which is our basically storytelling on a Thursday. This week we've had Kidnapping Kinney, the story of the striker from Barcelona being kidnapped, spending 25 days in captivity. They thought it was a criminal mastermind, or it could have been political nuances such as ETA. it was just three blokes who were really desperate for money who fancied holding a Barcelona striker hostage. So yeah, go and give that a read. It's a really good fun. But for now, I'll say thank you very much for joining us once again. And as always, hasta luego.